What's going on, my people? Welcome back to another episode of the Stop the Count podcast. In this episode, I will be talking about a good weekend that will be happening in combat sports. I will also talk about the NHL draft, the Mexican national soccer team, and Chivas' next game against León. First, for a little bit of news, it was announced Canelo versus Jermall Charlo will be happening in September. It's practically wrapped up. It just has to be made official. For the first main subject I will be talking about, it will be the top ranked boxing card. It's headlined by Jared Anderson going up against a new replacement in Charles Martin. He was supposed to fight Jan Kozabutsky, but Zan couldn't make it due to visa issues. Getting to some good prospects on the card. One of those is, in my opinion, Tiger Johnson. He had a very tough opponent his last fight, but he was still able to get a late stoppage. And he's in there again with another very tough opponent, so we'll see how he does this fight. Also on this card, Jahitucker. He's still very raw and didn't look good in his last fight, so we'll have to see how he looks this fight. And then the number one prospect in all of boxing right now, in my opinion, Abdullahmason, is also on this card. For the main event, Jared Anderson versus Charles Martin. I won't be breaking the fight down, but I will talk about the fighters. First, Charles Martin. Charles has a record of 29 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, with 26 of his wins coming by knockout. 2 of his losses have came to probably the best of the best in the division in Anthony Joshua and Luis Ortiz. Charles's latest loss was to Ortiz by knockout. Leading up to the finish, Charles was giving Luis a very tough fight. Charles does also have power, so that in itself makes him a very dangerous opponent for Jared. And now talking about Jared. Jared has a record of 14 wins, 0 losses, with all of his wins coming by knockout. This is another great step-up fight for Jared. I do believe this will be a tough fight, but the outcome will be the same. A Jared Anderson win by knockout, as Jared is so skilled for the heavyweight, a true generational heavyweight. Now, talking about the UFC Fight Night, it's surprisingly headlined by Seanstrickland and abusmagomedov. I say surprisingly because Abus has had one fight in the UFC, and he's already fighting in the main event of a fight night, and he's fighting a contender. Now, there is many good fights going down on the card. The first one I will mention is German. He will be fighting elvisbrener. If you remember, Brenner fought Zubaira Tukhugov. This was a very clear robbery in my opinion. I thought there was no way Zubaira lost that fight, but shit like this happens. Brenner did fight a decent fight against Zubaira, but German, in my opinion, will be too much for Elvis, and he will pull off the victory. Kevinlee is also making his return to the UFC on this card, and he's facing an extremely tough opponent in rinatfakhretdinov. Another great fight is Ismaelbonfim going up against benoitsaintdenis. This is going to be, in my opinion, where a performance bonus comes out. They are both amazing fighters. Also on the card is undefeated prospect michaelmorales, a guaranteed fireworks when this kid fights. He's in there with a very tough opponent in Max Griffin. So we'll just have to wait and see how Michael performs against a very difficult opponent in Griffin. Now for the main event, Seanstrickland versus abusmagomedov. I'm not going to break this fight down either, as it surprisingly doesn't interest me at all. But I will say it's crazy how they're giving Abus a top 10 opponent and a main event after just one fight in the UFC. This is a very tough test for Sean, and honestly a huge risk. Abus is good all around, and Sean gains nothing from this win. He probably jumps one spot in the ranking past Paulo Costa. Now, for who I have winning this fight, I believe it will be a very, very tough fight for both fighters, but I think Abus will take the win. He just seems to be the better all-around fighter. For the Mexican national team and their game against Haiti, what is there to say? Mexico should come out victorious from this game. Haiti is a tough opponent. They were just able to beat Qatar in their Gold Cup opener. literally in the last minutes of the game. This is a game which, in my opinion, fits Julian Araujo perfectly. Also, on who I have winning, there's an obvious choice. Haiti did win their last game, but there's levels to this. Mexico should win easily. I would predict a 3-1 win. Although it would be the most CONCACAF thing for Haiti to win or for them to draw. For some Chivas news, it's been made official that Sebastianperezbouquet and diegocampillo have been loaned out to Juarez for 3 torneos, and Bouquet will have no option to buy, as Campillo has an option for Juarez to be able to buy a percentage. I hope this wouldn't happen, but honestly, if you really think about it, it's the best thing that could have happened. They are both young and need playing time to grow. Although I do believe Chivas will need extra players due to all the competitions they're in this year, it's still better for them as players to see them leave and grow. Chivas do start their torneo off by playing León this upcoming Monday. It was a shortened pretemporada due to the League's Cup that will be going down from mid-July to mid-August. Chivas will be without Alexis Vega due to injury and Piojo Alvarado since he's with the selección. But they are two very important players. Now, for who will play in their position, who knows? But they will be very much needed and missed. León will be without Joel Campbell as he is with Costa Rica in the Gold Cup. The last game they played, Alexis played a major role in Chivas winning the game with 2 beautiful passes setting up the goals. And without him and Piojo, I find it very hard for Chivas to win. So I'll probably have to say a 1-1 draw between León and Chivas. Although I wouldn't be mad at a loss, as Pauno is having to go out there with a pretty thin squad. Now I will talk about AC Milan. I will talk about my beloved Milan. Now, news started to come out last week that they were looking to sell Sandrotonali to Newcastle, in which I thought it was bullshit. There's no way Tonali would leave. He's loved by the fans and he loves the institution, but oh, was I wrong. As after Newcastle's first approach, Sandro rejected them, stated he had no desire to leave the club, but the Milan board basically forced him to leave. As the money Newcastle was offering was a great amount, this really sucks as a fan, and honestly, it will be hard for me to watch any games next season with how management is handling this historic club. It's also said that Milan wants to sign Romelu Lukaku, which I hope doesn't happen. He's absolute garbage. And it also seemed as if Milan had secured the signing of Marcus Thuram, but no. Inter came in last minute to secure the signing, leaving Milan looking foolish. And finally, talking about the NHL. So for a little background, I'm just starting to get back into hockey, and as I was growing up, I grew up a San Jose Sharks fan. Yes, they're not that good now, but in due time. The Sharks won't be the main subject on this podcast, but I'll try to focus more on the whole league with a little more focus on the West Coast, as everyone is always talking about the East Coast and these Canadian teams. The biggest event for a team like mine is going down tonight, and that is the NHL draft, with consensus number 1 overall pick Connorbedard probably going to the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks did make a trade Monday afternoon as they acquired former number 1 overall pick Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. None of Hall's $6 million contract was retained, and the Blackhawks sent 2 restricted free agent defensemen to Boston. I feel this is a great addition for the Blackhawks, adding 2 experienced players to play alongside Connor. They only have the rights to Foligno, they still have to sign him to a contract. Now, real quick for how I see the top 5 of the NHL draft playing out. I see Anaheim selecting adamfantili, another great piece to add to the core of McTavish, Zegras, and Jamie Drysdale. At 3, Columbus selects leocarlson. This was a tough decision for me to pick between him and willsmith, but Columbus is closer to win now mode, and that's why I have them selecting a more proven player in Carlson. Now with the 4th overall pick, my San Jose Sharks select Matveimichkov. Yes, there has been many red flags surrounding Michkov, but with the potential he has, it's tough to not have a rebuilding Sharks team take him. They would have to wait 3 years for him to come over from Russia, but let's face it, the Sharks aren't going to be good for a little while. I'm very high on Will Smith as I feel he is the much safer player between him and Michkov. So at 5, I have the Canadians selecting Will Smith, the last of the quote unquote 5 big prospects. Sticking with the Habs and Quebec's very own Pierre-Luc Dubois, it's being reported by multiple sources that it's very likely Pierre lands in LA with the Kings. A major turn of events, in my opinion, as I thought 100% this was going to be the offseason. We see PLD head back to Montreal. I still believe there is a slim chance that he could be going to Montreal, but with the reported pieces the Kings are sending to Winnipeg, the price may be too high for Montreal. Alright, you guys, I'm recording this after I already recorded the previous piece, but I'll leave it in so you know what I thought before the trade was official. But Pierre-Luc Dubois is officially headed to the Kings in exchange for Gabe Vilardi, Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and by coincidence, Montreal's second round pick in 2024. PLD is signing an 8-year deal with an AAV of 8.5 per year as a part of this sign and trade. My thoughts on it is Winnipeg came out winning by a lot. They got way more than what I expected, as I thought they had no leverage in trade talks, as PLD had already said he won't be re-signing in Winnipeg. And for the Kings, I only have one question. What do you do with Quinton Byfield? He needs playing time to develop. He was your second overall pick. I think they probably move him over to the wing. But another trade that happened was with Montreal, as they made a trade acquiring Alex Newhook from Colorado. They sent over a first round pick and a second round pick this year, numbers 31 and 37. Now, I think this was a good trade for both teams, as Newhook gets a change of scenery to be with a coach that has already shown he works well with young talent. And for Colorado, it's a good trade to help them acquire more assets. And the last trade I'll talk about is the New Jersey Devils acquiring Tyler Toffoli from Calgary for Igor Sharangovich, third round pick this year, number 80 overall. This is another really good trade, as New Jersey really makes their top 6 one of the best, if not the best, in all of hockey. And for Calgary, it's just sad how this team has and will continue to fall, as they have no leverage in any trade talks, as their whole team pretty much wants to leave. Also, Nick Foligno signed a 1-year, $4 million deal with the Blackhawks. Thank you guys for staying until the end. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitter at StopTheCount10. See you next week as we talk about what went down over this past weekend. See you then.